Welcome once again to another episode from Elvis the Ultimate Fan Channel. As you know, I broadcast a live Elvis show on YouTube every Sunday. Each week we discuss a different Elvis-related topic. This week the topic was the fascinating relationship between Elvis and his father Vernon. Elvis fans called the show to give their opinions on this topic. I also ran a poll asking, was Vernon unfair in his remarks to Elvis, trying to get Elvis to change his ways, using Elvis, or was he just trying the best he could? You will hear the result of that poll at the end of this podcast. So sit back, relax, and listen to the opinions of the callers to the show. In 1975, both Elvis and his father Vernon were in Baptist Memorial Hospital. Elvis's doctors wanted to make sure the medication he was taking hadn't caused too much damage to his organs, and Vernon was recovering from a heart attack. The two men had neighbouring rooms, but this brought little comfort to them. According to Elvis's cousin, Billy Smith, Elvis and his father were not getting along during this period. Vernon began to blame Elvis for significant problems. On January the 29th, Elvis complained of shortness of breath. His doctor admitted him to the hospital to try and get his use of medications under control and to make sure he hadn't damaged his liver. On February the 5th, Vernon had a heart attack and was admitted to the same hospital. Elvis ensured his father had the room next to him. So all this was happening right around this time, 45 years ago. They didn't bring much comfort, though. Vernon began to blame his heart attack on his son and also said that Elvis's mother's death had been Elvis's fault. He said, "I can thank you for this," Billy Smith recalled in the book Careless Love, The Unmaking of Elvis Presley by Peter Guralnick. And then he blamed him for Aunt Gladys's too. He said, "You worried your mama right to the grave." Some believe that the stress she felt over Elvis's military hastened the decline of her health. To hear his father bring this up devastated Elvis. Elvis broke down and cried, Billy said. It just about killed him. So, without further ado, what does everybody think about Vernon Presley? What do you think about him blaming Elvis for his heart attack? Blaming the fact that, or saying that Elvis inadvertently, if you like, worried his mama into the grave? Do you think that Vernon Presley was the right man to take on Elvis's financial affairs? Because we know he was sort of, they didn't employ anybody else to do the financial side of things, but did they not trust anybody outside of Parker and Vernon, anybody else outside the family, apart from Parker, of course, to have monetary dealings? There was no sort of rainy day fund put aside by Vernon. Was Vernon just there for the ride and for the money, just like everybody else? As it was hinted in the Baz Luhrmann movie, there's that scene where just after the Colonel has given Elvis the bill for how much he owes him, and Elvis is leaving the hotel and he comes across Parker, and Parker says, "Yes, even your father has used you. Even your father has put himself first." Without further ado, hi Brent, how are you?
Well, what an interesting topic, because I think all of us as Elvis fans, Steve, have kind of bounced this idea around in our heads because we're trying to make an overall assessment based on limited information and no exposure beyond what has been reported by secondhand sources and stuff. Part of me, though, wonders if Vernon was really the type to have this malignant personality, wouldn't he kind of abandon them back when they had nothing?
Yeah.
A lot of men did that back then. They just said, I don't have the ability or the wherewithal to take care of a family with such depressing circumstances. So I put that in a column for his favor. But there have been, first of all, maybe back then they did stuff like that, but you just don't throw blame for someone's mortality onto someone else's face. You just don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, there has been rumors as well, and I think some of this came from the Alana Nash book, was that Vernon did go off at times and run around and drink with other women as well while he was married to Gladys.
Well, that only makes him Southern. No, I'm joking. Okay, that was bad. Okay, no. No, but there is a thing about the South where, like, this machismo thing that a lot of men have. Even Elvis had aspects of it. This, you're a down-home good man, but you love your ladies kind of thing. And I'm not saying it's right, not giving him a pass on that. I would not be surprised. I can't, of course, neither of us can substantiate the claim, but I wouldn't be surprised either. I think Vernon was a human being, but there were some things I didn't like, though, because, and this is factual stuff, I would have looked out for my son before allowing the Colonel to dictate terms. Remember in that Baz Luhrmann film when they're in the room, it really looks like an innocuous moment in the film, but it actually, I think, demonstrated something. There's that part where the Colonel says, taking care of business, and it just zooms over to Vernon, and he goes, taking care of business.
Yeah.
And it sounded like, it looked dumb at the beginning. Well, why did they cut to that? What was the point of that? But maybe it was the point that he just agreed in such a knee-jerk fashion to whatever the Colonel wanted. And I'm sorry, Steve, if I had kids, no one would come between me and my kids. What would be best for my son would trump everything else.
Yeah. Now, one thing that struck me when I was compiling the show as well was, do you think that Vernon was probably just a little scared? He'd had a heart attack. He came close to death. Was he just sort of lashing out? I mean, they always say you lash out the people closest to you and the people you love sometimes. Maybe that was why he was saying that. I'm blaming you for my heart attack.
Of course. And you know what? If there is anyone on the Discord server or on your YouTube chat who has never said anything wrong and in terrible taste to someone else in the heat of an argument or during times of increased stress, then congratulations, because you're the first person who's ever been like that.
Exactly.
We all have, Steve. We've all said things we regret. I've said horrible things I wish I could take back during, with that pressure cooker. I think sometimes we feel defenseless. And when we're scared and defenseless, the only thing we have is the power to say something to make someone else feel the pain that we are feeling. And it's more of an explanation than that of a justification. Yeah.
Good point. Okay, Brent, always great to hear from you.
Okay, Steve, and thank you so much. A great show so far.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
All right. Later.
Bye-bye. Another caller. And it's Cameron. Hi, Cameron.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Nice to speak to you again. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, and you. Glad to hear that your voice is holding out at least.
Yes. I don't know how much longer, but I'll keep going anyway.
Yeah, that's the only way we know how, Steve. And with Elvis as a topic, there's no room for sickness, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think about Vernon then?
Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of what Jack says. I think in the heat of the moment, a person says things sometimes that they later regret. But, it's open to interpretation because, look, if we're really honest, none of us were really there. None of us were present in the room.
That's a really, really good point. Yeah, and we don't know how Vernon was feeling either. I'm sure he was pretty scared because he probably thought he was on his way out with a heart attack. He came close to death.
Yeah, and I think once people tell stories and they retell stories as stories have been retold over the years, people tend to elaborate on things and to add little bits and pieces to make the stories believable. So it's kind of hard to make an informed choice with regard to Vernon as a person. But if I would have to say, if I would be put on the spot, I would have to say, if indeed he did say something like that, a person would have to have a look at the circumstance in which something like that possibly could have been said. And, to agree with what Jack says, I don't think Vernon was a malicious person at heart. So if he had said that, it possibly might have just been a case of him wanting to blame something or someone for the situation that he'd found himself in. And as Brent correctly stated, a person tends to do those kind of things to the people that are closest to you at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering whether he was trying to get Elvis to change his ways. That's one of the options in the poll, actually. Did you actually vote on the poll?
Yes, I did. My choice was, I think Vernon was doing the best that he could, because we all know that nobody ever told Elvis no.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if you were an associate or if you were a family member. As soon as you told him no, you cannot have that, he would be like a small boy throwing a tantrum. So I think it might have been a very difficult position for all of them to be in, knowing that he was going down a road that would potentially be harmful to him and might potentially cost him his life at the end of it. I think it's a very difficult position to be in, especially if you do care for the person as much as the people that were around him did. I think it must be very frustrating for them to kind of see him running towards a brick wall and trying their best to warn him about that.
Yeah.
But also him being stubborn in saying that I have it under control. It's my life. Because we all know, Sonny and Red and all those guys had tried that, and what happened to them? They were let go.
Yeah, and he could even have cut his father out of everything as well if his father had gone too far and said, stop this, stop that, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, I know Vernon tried to stop him spending so much at one time, and Elvis near enough said, "Look, mind your own business. It's my money. If I need more money, I'll just do another tour." That's what Elvis would say.
Exactly. And I think from his father's perspective, having been there when times were tough and having had to have gone to prison to try and make ends meet, etc., it might have been a situation where his father looked at it in terms of say something to the extent of possibly losing my comfort zone or keeping quiet and continuing on the road that I'm on. Namely, we don't need to want for anything. I think he took the safer option for him in terms of just keeping his opinion to himself and hoping that Elvis's ways would change, which unfortunately we all knew never did.
Yeah.
But, I think everyone involved at the time was caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
As I previously stated, I think it's very difficult to be in that kind of position, knowing that the person you love and the person you care about is on a self-destructive path.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing you can do. I mean, people were asked around that time, why didn't you guys have him committed? And like they said, he's a 40-year-old man. You can't prove that he's crazy.
I mean, they always say that if you want help, the first person that has to acknowledge that is the person themselves. They have to acknowledge that they need help. And I don't think Elvis ever really acknowledged that he needed help.
No, I don't think he acknowledged to anyone around him that he needed help. But we all know that he was a very clever person. And I think deep down, he knew that he might have had a problem. But unfortunately, for those times, receiving prescription medication, he kind of sugarcoated it for himself, saying that these are medications that are coming from doctors and the doctors will look after me, which unfortunately is very short-sighted because doctors don't care for their patients. They care for the money that comes in.
Yeah. All right, Cameron. Good points. Very well put. Thanks very much. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And agreed with Jack's, with Brent's sentiments. Great show so far, and always nice to talk to.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye now. Hi, Dylan.
Hello, sir.
Well, birthday boy minus 1 week.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah. So we're looking at probably what is it? Is it the 18th? Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I have to do something. I'll have to do a special quiz for you. But then again, that would give you the unfortunate advantage, wouldn't it? You know, that would give you an unfair advantage if I did the, the name the jumpsuit.
Oh, come on, Steve. It's my birthday. Come on.
So, what do you think about Vernon?
I think he was doing the best that he could.
Do you? Right, fair enough.
And I think he did love him, even though, people do lash out. And it's kind of unfair for people to blame Vernon. He was sick. And he can't help what he says. I've done it before.
Yeah, I know. And if he was in pain or he was scared or anything like that, he could just be lashing out. And Elvis, they always reckon that you hurt the closest to you in those situations.
Yeah.
What about? Elvis was very unhappy with the fact that Vernon remarried so soon. In fact, Elvis didn't go to the wedding. He could have gone to the wedding. I'm sure he could have gone to Vernon and Dee's wedding if he'd wanted to, but he didn't.
No, but I think it's just because it was so close after Gladys went, and maybe he couldn't accept her. Maybe.
We know that he never really took to Dee, did he?
No, because in his eyes, only one female figure in his life.
Yeah,
and that was his mum.
Oh yeah. I think he even said, I've only got one mother, and as long as she realizes that she won't take her place, we'll get along just fine. So you voted trying the best he could, yeah?
Yeah, I voted trying the best he could, but I also I just want to apologise for my voice as well, because my voice is a bit crocked.
Yeah, I think half of us on this channel are actually all crocked, I think.
No, well, like everyone else, it's because they're all old, but I can't help it. So.
No, I've actually got something to tell you, actually, because I said that I was going to announce the winner of the Fan of the Month for January.
Mm.
Well, believe it or not, young man, it's you. Yes, it's you.
Yay! Nice one.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah, so what I was going to say was, I don't know if you want to choose one. You can let me know if you can't choose one here and now. An Elvis Blu-ray.
An Elvis Blu-ray.
That you haven't got, of course.
That I have this Change of Habit.
You've probably got them all, have you?
I've nearly got one that I've not seen yet that I want to see, is Change of Habit.
Is it available in Blu-ray?
You know what? I'm going to hang on. I'm going to Google it right now.
Yes, Google it for me while we're on.
Change of Habit.
Just go Amazon and then go Change of Habit Blu-ray.
Yep, it's on Blu-ray.
Right, okay. Well, if that's the one you want, it'll be winging its way to you then next week.
Oh, nice one.
So congratulations, Dylan. You are the... I should have done this before I told them who it was.
Actually, wait. Can I donate it to Brent, actually?
If you wish, yes. If Brent, you're still listening, it sounds like you've got a Change of Habit Blu-ray coming your way. There you go.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Oh, yeah. Because here's the thing. No one deserves it more than Brent, to be fair. So, okay. Brent, you've got a Change of Habit DVD gun.
Right. Well, that's very, very nice of you, Dylan. Very, very nice. I'm sure there'll be more months when you'll be a winner anyway, because you're extremely good. You when I do the jumpsuits and things like that, you normally get a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, I think on these lyrics one, I think I should get a point just for comedy.
Yeah,
because
yes. Very good. All right, young man, I'll talk to you again.
I thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.
Wasn't that lovely of Dylan to donate the prize of a Change of Habit Blu-ray to Brent? Now, of course, if Brent wants to choose a different one, he can, of course, because he might have Change of Habit on Blu-ray. But the fact that Dylan has donated the prize to him is very, very kind. Hello, Carolina.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. I forgot to mute my YouTube, so I was hearing you twice, and then I couldn't go back.
And hearing me once is bad enough. Never mind twice.
It's a great show so far.
Thank you very much.
Topics. I have some mixed emotions about Vernon, and then I also have I also have some concerns about how he was sort of put in charge of all of his finances.
Oh yes, because this is something we haven't mentioned yet, isn't it? The way he was head of all the financial side of Elvis. Yeah.
Right. So there was that stress going back from early days, and then having to manage all of his finances, and then also worrying about how that was going, and it just all sort of accumulated. And us looking at it back in hindsight, I mean, we know we could have done this or that, and we could have had an accountant and a manager and so on and so forth. But we all have to still remember that it was the first time that someone of Elvis's caliber exploded onto the scene, and they really didn't know what to do. They did the best they could. So I think Vernon did. So I'm 50-50. He did the best he could, but also he was a little harsh, and he was scared. He was sick. Gladys had been gone for a long time. Elvis was deteriorating. And by that point, I think he had more than one heart attack. So all of that compounded created such an environment that was so stressful that he maybe lashed out at Elvis. And I can understand that you say things that are hurtful that you later regret. I myself only have one son as well. So I understand you fiercely want to protect them, and you fiercely want to guide them down the right path.
Yes.
But at a certain point, you can no longer hold their hand. You can no longer force them to do anything. And it's sort of like, sometimes I just say to myself, he's got to learn the hard way. Except Elvis took it was, to a significant greater level. So, I mean, I have compassion for Vernon, but we also have to consider all those other factors that played into the decisions that they made.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a very sort of brief sort of lash out, when Elvis probably said something, and Vernon probably said, well, it's your fault that I had this heart attack. I mean, we also don't know, for instance, maybe later on, a couple of days later or something, in private, when it was just Elvis and Vernon together, maybe Vernon apologized to Elvis for saying that. Yes. We just don't know. We've only got Billy because Billy was there at the time when Vernon said the remark that he said to Elvis about, you've got, I blame you for this, and also you worried Gladys into the grave. But maybe at a time when it was just those two together, they made up again.
I believe so. I mean, you could literally see the love that they had for each other, especially when he would call him up to the stage.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot make that stuff up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a moment in time. It was probably very regretful. He always did the best he could. He always worried that because he lived through those hard times in the beginning, and he was so afraid of going back to those hard times. And then he just learned along the way. They just all learned along the way, as Elvis said, so many groundbreaking points in culture and American history. They just learned along the way. And sometimes, things just didn't pan out. But for the most part, he did the best he could, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So you would probably would have said that he was just trying the best he could on the poll, then, did you?
I think so. Yeah. That's what I voted. I mean, I was in between did the best he could and a little harsh, but I ultimately ended up, taking into consideration all those factors, ended up with he always did the best he could.
Yeah. Okay, Carolina, it's lovely to speak to you. Thanks very much for calling in. All the best.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Hi, Mark Green. How are you?
Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
Coming through loud and clear. So, what do you think?
Vernon. I think he was a very weak man.
Oh, right.
I think I heard some stories about him drinking himself, and you're right about the womanizing as well. I think, obviously, the Colonel probably knew how weak he was, so he could control him.
Yeah.
and and say, you got to do this. So he was controlling him as well as him controlling Elvis, like him, his son, So, and I think Elvis probably, obviously we all know he loved his mum more than I think he did his dad, and I think he probably lost a little bit of respect with him. You forget, like, we lost Gladys in 58, and did he remarry 66, 61 with Dee?
Yeah, he married her on, I think it was the 3rd of July 1960. So it was just 2 short years. 2 years.
Yeah, and Elvis didn't agree on that at all, did he?
No, he didn't. No. As I said earlier, I'm sure if he wanted to, he could have made time and gone to the wedding, but he didn't. Yeah, so that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I think that was a big hole in his heart there. I think he didn't have the respect, and I think the way they made Vernon do all the accounts, like the Colonel, I think it was just easy. Elvis should have been stronger and not done that, and not let his dad be in charge of his accounts and his money,
Yeah, I heard one of the Memphis Mafia saying they just didn't trust outsiders. They wanted to keep it within the family. So Vernon was doing the financial side, and Parker was doing the managerial side, and that was it.
Yeah, but you can see with the later dates, where did all the money go? Vernon must have spent a bit as well, but not even saying anything to his son about it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, we do know that Vernon definitely liked the money and the trappings that it brought.
Yeah, I don't think Vernon was like Parker. He wasn't a gambling man, but I think he liked his smoking, didn't he? He liked to drink, and I think he liked the ladies. And he probably liked, the odd flash car here and stuff like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I think he did things behind the scenes that probably didn't even tell his son.
Yeah.
And I suppose when it comes to head to a head, and the hospital thing, I suppose you could say he might have been a bit frustrated. I suppose 75, it was starting to be a bit of a hard time with the Colonel and Elvis and Vernon, and things weren't going as well as they should have been. When you see the Baz film, the same. The tension was there, but you can blame. I suppose you could blame he wasn't too well. But Elvis still. He must have respected him in some other way, because he always was there at the concerts. He always called him up, didn't he? His father.
I have no doubt there was a genuine love between the two of them. Yes.
Yeah, I think there was. And I think if Elvis had been a little bit stronger himself and a little bit wiser, he would have seen what the Colonel was trying to do to his dad, as well as him, twisting a few things around and saying, Vernon, you've got to tell your son this and blah, blah, blah. But, it was just awkward. It was just awkward, wasn't it, between the three of them? And I think by the end, Elvis had probably gave up about it already, hadn't he?
Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah.
All right, Mark.
Yeah.
As always,
okay,
thanks a lot.
Okay, mate. Take care.
Bye-bye. Yeah, nice to speak to Mark on the Discord, actually, because that's the main way we're trying now to handle the calls through. You can call on the other ways as well, the Messenger and WhatsApp and Instagram if you wish, but we are sort of trying to keep it over now to Discord. And somebody else that's used Discord is Priscilla. Hi, Priscilla.
Hey, Steve, my boy, how are you?
Well, what do you think of Vernon Presley?
Well, now, I'm going to start by saying, aren't we marvellous with the benefits of 2020 vision? Huh?
Yeah. And we weren't there either.
We're looking back. Yeah. Families are complex, Steve.
They are, yeah.
There's none of them black and white.
No.
And I think it's unfair of us to maybe comment on a situation that we weren't there or involved in. However, in saying that, I think that for Elvis to be the kind of human being he was, he had to have been surrounded by love, because that's what he did for the people around him.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he had to have seen love and attention. And if you think about it, Elvis was very much a family man. His grandmother moved in with them. His aunt moved in with them. And I think that would have happened if Elvis wasn't Elvis Presley. I think he was the kind of man that would have looked after those people, and that was family, and family was important.
Yeah, but don't forget, now Vernon didn't always agree with Elvis taking family in. Look at the way, allegedly how he treated Billy after Elvis died. You know, he wanted to keep the caravan, the mobile home out the back. He told Billy that it wasn't his furniture. It belonged to the estate. So, I don't think there was much love lost between Billy and Vernon now.
I suppose, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier, Steve. Families are complex.
Yeah.
We don't know what transpired in between. Yeah. We don't know if Billy did something that Vernon took offence to at the time. We really don't know, and we're hearing very one-dimensional versions of situations that may or may not have occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think Vernon loved Elvis in whatever way he could? Then yes is the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think Elvis loved Vernon? Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was a family man to the core, and I think that as for Vernon's running around gallivanting or whatever it was, I could say something very sexist, and I really don't want to. But nothing much has changed in that category.
Oh yeah, and
here we are.
I know what you're saying. I'll say it for you. Men will always be men. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I don't want anybody, so don't go bashing me now, peeps.
No.
But, nothing much has changed in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you also have to take into consideration, we talk regularly about the women and their availability and their, willingness to be available to Elvis. I'm one of them women. Just happens that he's not around anymore. I would do it, hands down, no bother. The only man on the planet that might get me. But anyway, so I think people were very willing to accommodate Vernon in order to get closer to Elvis too.
Oh,
so I think
of course, yeah. I mean, we know that Dee wanted Elvis, and when she couldn't get Elvis, she settled for Vernon.
God, wasn't she great to settle at all? But anyway.
So,
look, I think, and I also think too that at that time in 75, obviously Vernon had the heart attack. Things were different, lifestyles were different.
Mm-hmm.
The medical treatment wasn't there. If you had a heart attack, it's likely you died more than survived in them days, statistically. And if we go back and look at those kind of medical conditions and how many people successfully recovered from them. So I think Vernon was running scared at the time. And if he said those things or things like those things, I truly believe that he did it in order. He used the one weapon he had left. If he thought his mortality was staring him in the face, he used the one weapon he had to try and make Elvis see the wood for the trees.
Yeah. Wonderful
Cheers,
call.
Steve.
Wonderful call. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks, babes. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay. What wonderful, wonderful calls we had tonight. Really, really good. Thanks very, very much to everybody that called in. Let's have a look at the poll. Was Vernon unfair in his remarks to Elvis? Was he trying to get Elvis to change his ways, using Elvis, or just trying the best he could? 42% unfair about his remarks to Elvis. Trying to the best he could, 33%. Tried to get Elvis to change his ways, 14%. Only 9% say that they thought Vernon was using Elvis. So that's the results of the poll this week. And thanks to everybody that voted for or voted in the poll. Thanks once again for joining me on Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel. I'd like to extend an invite to everybody listening to join me on Sunday's live show on the YouTube channel and to become a member of the Discord server. We have a lot of fun on there. I'd love to hear from you during the call-in section when we discuss all things Elvis. That's all for this week. I hope you can join me next time for another podcast from Elvis the Ultimate Fan channel.